So you hear that, Jennifer? You got no one to blame but yourself.
Jennifer just logged off.
Set, hike.
I was gonna say go.
Wonderful.
Set, go. Ready, set, learn.
That was a big thing for a while. Is it that I just don't watch television anymore, or have all those all those commercials stopped? Like all the kid commercials.
I'm sure they're still. I don't watch. I'm sure they're on children's networks. Oh, good for you! Congratulations.
Yeah, you're the one who goes to all the children's birthday parties. So.
Yeah, right.
You figure that I watch. I gotta stay hip and watch all the kids shows so that I know how to talk to these kids.
Dude, it's so bad. Seriously, talking to everybody, and I'm sure Benji can now start to relate. I am so just far away and disconnected from
Yeah, it's pretty sad actually.
From modern culture, as far as TV and movies and stuff. No idea.
Yeah,
no idea.
There's a lot of times that people ask me, "Oh, have you watched blank?" And
no,
I'm no.
not even just.
I didn't watch. I haven't watched anything.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with that show in particular. It has just I don't watch anything.
Not even just kids. I was at I was at a college. It was the move-in day or whatever at the local college or whatever. And my friends were like, "Oh, you should come by and say hi to everybody." So I went by. I have just become disconnected from every single person. I there's just a massive gap between. I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I don't know what it is, but it's just I was I resonate with none of you people.
No, I think we kind of fall into this echo chamber. Well, I don't want to say echo chamber, but we live a completely different lifestyle than 90% of the population. Mm-hmm. I even had a 60-year-old guy I was working with him the other day. He's like, "Hey, did you this guy's in his 60s. He's like, "Hey, did you see the show on Netflix?" It's no, sorry, I don't watch trash.
It's he works half time. He's got to fill the other half of the time with something.
Yeah, it's true. He's only working part time. He had a nice union gig. He's been retired since he's been 55.
Good for him. Yeah. That's awesome. That's goals.
Yeah, he's worked for us for 20 years, just kind of not under the table. He's legit on the books, but only has to come in 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah, and just that's beautiful. Good for him.
There's a guy at one of my formal jobs who just works half days Monday through Thursday. That's all that he does.
Just so he can get out of the house and put clothes on.
Yeah. That and he has to. He races cars.
THELife.
Yeah. He does drag racing, so he has to subsidize that somehow.
Yeah, when you like it, you like it.
Yeah, I guess so. It's it's an oldie. I guess
you got two types of people.
Fair.
Yeah, that's awesome though. I mean, that's the goal. Work till 55 and then retire.
I mean, the goal is to work until
35.
You absolutely have to. Yeah, and to just leave and do nothing. It's
yeah, fair enough.
I think that's actually a pretty good segue. I guess we'll get an intro and we can talk about it. But what's up? This is the Life Podcast. You're here with Tyler, who is me, and you also got Benji over here.
Hello.
What's up? And
over here.
And Enrique.
Over here.
¿Qué pasó?
¿Qué pasó?
That's it. That's the only line. We're gonna audio clip that and just have a board and just
Benjito and Enrique.
Yeah.
All right, so today's show we were talking about we kind of just stumbled right into it. We were talking about that's the goal. It's you're into drag racing or you're into whatever. I work this lifestyle because I can. There's a lot of people who get stuck in these tough lifestyles, or they get stuck in these minimum wage jobs, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know. I can't change my life." Did you have the show notes? So we can quote it right off.
I can get you the formal concept. If you don't like the way you are or where you're at, get people around you who are where you want to go and act the way you want to act.
And that's that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could definitely go a little bit deeper on that. It's, we talk about, wanting to retire early and everything. And we, just the other day, we had met somebody, and he was, definitely an aged gentleman, and he loves what he does. I don't.
He had
I don't know.
He had white hair.
Yeah, he had white hair. So, I don't know how old he was, but
25.
Yeah, he's really stressed. He's a really stressed production manager.
25-year-old. Yeah, and awesome guy. But we were talking about we weren't talking with him, but afterwards we were Do you think that he'll retire anytime soon? I don't think he will, personally. I think that he loves what he does so much that he'll, like, if you really love what you do, you'll do it till the end. Like, for me, like, in music, I might not do paid gigs for the rest of my life, but I'll create music for the rest of my life.
Work half days Monday through Thursday.
Yeah, I'm half days Monday through Thursday.
Just so you have an excuse to put pants on and, like, have actual social interaction with other human beings.
Exactly. But, like, you know, I'd start doing that at 35. You know, if the bills were paid.
Legit, but that's the goal. And so many times we can see this with a lot. I mean, I really could see this developed as being a kid or being like a young adult. Like, oh, I want to change my life, but yet I hang out with all the same people, and your life just continues to go the way it goes. I mean, definitely being like in like a super stoner, like everybody sits around and hangs out and smokes weed and plays video games and just does nothing, or like, I mean, not even the video games, but just sits around and smokes weed. You talk these high and lofty ideas, man. You know, I got this company I'm gonna make, and like, if I can make shoes for cats, like I'll just be rich in like a week, but I need like $10,000.
Yeah,
but you got like 3, so I could get a Foot Loco, man.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. We were actually having this conversation in a different context, and it was all like, everybody is the most important and the least important person in their circles. So everybody has a bunch of different circles of friends. In one circle, they're the most important person. And in another circle, they're the least important person. And I think a lot of people spend too much time in the circles where they're in the upper echelon, so that there's no reason to push farther. And really successful people spend more time in the circles where they're the smallest person, so they can learn and develop more skills.
Well, think about being in the tank. The big fish is comfortable because he doesn't have to worry about anything.
Yep. He doesn't have to watch his back. And so you never grow anymore. That you get too comfortable and you stop growing, and you always stay where you are. You always stay in that tank. You never get moved over to a bigger pond.
Yeah, I mean, fish only grow as big as they can within a certain. I mean, this is weird, but like, fish are like plants. A plant will only get so big if it's in a pot. Fish, you got a 5-gallon tank, it'll only get big enough to be able to swim back and forth in that tank. But if you put it in a 20-gallon tank, that fish will get bigger until it outgrows the tank.
It's important also to realize that, like, the people who are around you, we've discussed this on different shows. If you surround yourself with people who only work to a certain extent or only are motivated to achieve a certain thing, you know, then you're only going to achieve that certain thing. Why do you think, like, in like colleges they put all the football players together? You know, because it's like all of those people build off of the energy of each other. It's not like, and I know that there are not necessarily the best reasons why they do it, but like the concept of, like, if you and I are very energetic people, and Tyler is naturally disposed to not be energetic, if we all spend time together, they will equalize each other. So we will, our energy will lower in some cases, and Tyler's energy will go up, like socialized energy.
That's why I drink coffee.
Yeah, that's why you drink. Absolutely. It's like that concept transfers into whatever different thing you're doing. It's like, if you have a soccer team and nobody wants to play soccer, you're going to be a trash soccer team.
Absolutely.
If you have a soccer team where, like, everybody except for one person is excited to play soccer, then everybody's energy is going to bring that person up into that energy level.
Yeah,
you know?
But it goes the same both ways. So if you're surrounded by people who don't want to play soccer, the person with all the energy will get drained down.
Yeah,
you know, and whatever the overwhelming party is the one that takes will usually be the one that's obviously strong because they have the most influence in the group. So it's just like, if you are the person that's always motivated and always ready to go and ready to always be the first person to start something, but you're surrounded by people who procrastinate, and you spend a lot of time with them, then it'll slow you down, you know, because they'll convince you, like, oh, we don't have to do that now, we can do it tomorrow.
Sometimes it even just starts to pervert your vision. It makes your perception skewed. It's like, like, I'm the smartest person in the class. Yeah, but you're in the special ed class and you have a 64 and you're still not passing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's like, yeah, but I got the highest grade, man. Yeah, but you're still not passing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a perspective thing. It's like, you know, we say, like, is 70 miles per hour fast? It's all like, yeah, and like,
if you get hit, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yes, I guess relatively.
It's fast on a moped.
Exactly. It's like, it's fast in a car that maxes out at 90.
Yeah.
It's not fast in a Formula 1 car.
Yeah.
Like,
My uncle used to build these motorized bicycles. Like it's just like a bicycle with like a little like single cylinder,
Nice.
two-stroke engine on it. Hey, 70 on one of those little bikes is. I tell you what, that's death. 40's already like I need to get off this thing.
it's true, and it's like we spend so much time around the people who aren't pushing the gas, you know, like they're not striving to do things because most of society doesn't care. Unfortunately, like if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably in the minority of the population who actually cares enough to want to push forward.
Congratulations.
Yeah, like the majority of Americans are perfectly content living a 9-to-5 job, which is perfectly fine, except until it's not.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there are people who are happy to work a 9-to-5, work for until they're 65, and then retire on their pension without any questions whatsoever, and that's a perfectly normal life because they have things that they want to do outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who refuse to do that. You know, and having that motivation. The example that I'm trying to get to is the idea that if you don't want to work a 9-to-5 job and you only hang around people who work 9-to-5 jobs, you're not going to have the motivation to go and do things, and you're also going to be ostracized as the weird person, at least in that context.
Yeah. I mean, I can feel it all the time. I'm sure you guys can relate more or less. I mean, Benji, you just started talking about it, but it's like when you start talking about your actual life habits, people will look at me really, really weird. Like be like, "Oh, you see this show? No. You see this? Nah. I don't watch TV."
No, yeah, they look at you like
it's like, well, what's wrong with you? Like, what's your problem? It's like, I don't know. I just don't want to watch TV, and I do other things. And then if I start explaining, like, no, I proactively got rid of TV a long time ago, so that it forced me into doing more productive things in my life. Then people start feeling personally attacked.
Yeah,
like it's like, dude, it has nothing to do with you. Yeah. It's actually all about me.
Yeah, I know. People have a good way of making it about themselves.
It's an internal thing. It's a subconscious thing where it's like, oh, I have an issue that I don't like about myself. And when you see somebody who's not doing that, like why do people make fun of people who are fit? Because they want to be fit. Yeah. Like if you take, okay, like, and I mean this in the nicest way possible. If you take a person who's just not like a super bodybuilder, like who does it to the extreme. You take like a physically fit person who's just fit, and you're like, oh, that person's like too fit. It's like, what does that even mean? That person is too fit. It's like, because you don't have the motivation to get up at 3 a.m. and go to the gym, you're going to make fun of this person because they look better. Like,
or even like they just take a walk every every other day. Like,
it's like, because we sit on our couches and watch Netflix and we binge like Days of Our Lives for 85 hours a week. It's how like that's why this person is obviously inferior because they look better. I don't get that. It's not really. I don't know where that came from.
That was good. Like, side note, who put in the show notes water is healthy?
Oh yes. No, it's it's pH healthy. It's
filthy. All right. We'll save that for a different show. I thought it was just like you screwed up typing that in.
No, that was intentional.
Water is healthy, so is school.
Yeah. Fair. So before we end the segment, go to an ad break. The concept here: find people who you want to be like, and hang around them as much as possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, really, that's into what it is. It's like if you don't like where you are, if you don't like who you are. I mean, this is a character thing as much as not where you are. It's like, well, why am I angry all the time? There's a proverb that says like, if you hang out with people given to strife and wrath, you'll be just like them. You'll learn it no matter what. And it's like, oh, well, why am I angry all the time? I need to be around people who are more positive, more this, more that. Yeah. So if there are places that we want to go, or if we desire to be a different person on the inside, we have to first get around that environment and start to immerse ourselves in that. If you want to speak a language, it's not enough just to know about it and to see it from afar. You actually have to immerse yourself into it to be able to speak it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always talk about like the closest 5 people in your life, and it's so important. And I know we always come back to that, but I think it's like something that a lot of people don't think, like they don't realize how important it really is. But that's their main influence. We're social beings that just kind of we act on the things that are around us. We react based off our environment. If we're in a very comfortable environment, we'll have a very comfortable day. But if we're in an uncomfortable situation, we feel the discomfort. And that's the same thing with the people in our lives.
Yeah. So, that proverb right there, it just to quote it exactly, it's like, don't associate with a man given to wrath, lest you be like him.
Yeah, it's perfect.
And that's it.
We're going to take an ad break, and we'll be right back.
Stay tuned.
We would like to thank Anchor for sponsoring and hosting the Life podcast. So who are Anchor and what do they do? Anchor is the all-in-one platform that gives you everything you need to make and publish your podcast. And best of all, it's all free. Anchor allows you to use their creative tools to record and edit your podcast. No need for any fancy professional equipment. Sounds amazing, right? And we haven't even gotten to the best part. Anchor isn't just a recording and editing platform. They're a publisher too. This means that Anchor takes care of all of the hard stuff, like publishing to Apple and Google Podcasts, so you don't have to. So what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Another thanks to Anchor for hosting, publishing, and sponsoring the Life podcast.
That's how we start every segment. It's just like a little bit of Eric and I are fighting to press the start button on the timer. So that's the change. Like it's important. So we were talking about California. California is a great example of this concept where it's all like sometimes there's a bad situation to these types of things. It's important to when you're interacting with people and you're trying to find people who you want to be. It's important to strip the bad things that they do out of the equation because people are not. They're not perfect. People aren't. So if you take a person and you're like, okay, I want to be an extreme example of this can be being a producer in Hollywood. You say, oh, okay, I want to be a producer in Hollywood. This is the person who I look up to, and that person gets charged with sexual assault and all of these things. And it's all like, if you try to emulate 100% of that person, you're following the path that they're following. You're going to end up in the same place that they end up.
Step one, buy a black pleather couch.
Yeah, so when emulating somebody who you're trying to achieve the same things that they achieve or the same level of things that they achieved, emulate the good things that got them to that position and not the flaws that person has.
Because everyone has flaws, absolutely.
Flaw one, black pleather couch.
That'd be... Well, yeah, I guess if you're like not buying the pleather couch.
I honestly, you started talking. I didn't even realize we were recording.
Yeah, well, Eric said we're rolling in. I said we have a tight schedule this morning, so it's not like, oh, max it out, hit the gas.
Oh.
So
you working today?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Maxed out. Clock don't stop, boys. We gotta. Somebody's gotta pay for all this.
Someone's got to bake the bread.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's good. What I was gonna say is
I don't even have headphones on.
Yeah, that's why I was like touching them. But yeah. So what I was gonna say is like it. Another thing it's definitely not easy to do overnight, but it's definitely like something that I'm working towards is to have like different mentors in your life or like the closest 5 people, like, but for different areas of your life. Like one person could be really good in the professional field that you want to go to, and another person could be really good in the spiritual world that you want to go into. Another person could be good financially. There's people who are really good at really like in different things. We say that you can't be good at everything, but people are really good at something. And if you want to be good in financials, then put yourself around people who are good in financial situations. People who make good financial decisions, people who have, a very healthy savings account that you just understand. Like obviously you're not going to look at the numbers, but you just know that this person is really good at saving and you want to learn from them.
Or even watch their spending habits.
Yeah.
That's number one. It's like, how come I can't spend money? I mean, how come I can't save money? Well, step one, Jennifer, like you didn't need that $5 macchiato from Starbucks.
Yeah, she's sipping the $5 macchiato.
Yeah. That's just guilty.
Hey, but listen, if you have the money and that $5 is only a drop in the bucket, like
fair.
You can get to a place where luxury like that is child's play. But if you're just starting out and you're trying to build, $5 is $5.
Yeah, but like if a $5 macchiato is 5% of your this week's spending budget, then maybe it's not a good maybe that's not a good investment. But if a $5 macchiato is only 1% of your spending budget this week, then that's probably fine.
And I mean, if you can't live without making a macchiato, like maybe wait for your tax return, pony up for like a decent espresso machine, and then like let it
for 2 macchiatos. Go ahead, I know what you're going.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, okay, well, now I'm gonna invest. I'll make it my own at my house. I'll cut cost every single day, and then eventually it will pay for itself. And then it's like, okay, well,
yeah.
I mean, I negated the fact that I needed to go to Starbucks every single day and spend $5 and change on a macchiato.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that the issue here is there is a sacrifice that people are not willing to make, where it's all like, you see this thing, I want to achieve this thing, I want to be like this person, and then it's all like, oh, this person that I want to be like doesn't buy Starbucks because, hey, spending $5 a day twice a day on coffee
alone
is not the best idea. It's like it's.
I started cracking up. I'm sorry. Like I was being a bad friend, but like I was laughing because my internal dialogue was like, well, I have to go to Starbucks because if I make my own macchiatos, I don't have anybody to yell at. Like I can't scream at somebody for getting the 2 pumps of mocha wrong.
Yeah, fair enough. I had it. Yeah.
That's like a deep psychological thing, though.
Yeah, that's a different problem.
It's not even the macchiato or like whatever the beverage that goes down the gullet. It's like the fact that I couldn't like tell somebody they got it wrong even when they got it right.
Or even like, actually, I like that you said that because it even goes like, you don't have anyone else to blame. At least if you're spending that money on the coffee, you could be like, oh, coffee's so expensive.
Yeah, right.
It's like, don't buy.
And they screw it up every time.
Yeah, and it gives you a reason to complain. And then, or like, but those excuses are fueling your fire, or fueling, not a good fire. It's like the bad fire. That's that's like slowly killing you. But it's fueling that fire, giving you an excuse to not want to actually do it,
or even save the money,
or like that's your excuse why you're not saving money is because I have to spend money on coffee.
Right. So you hear that, Jennifer? You got no one to blame but yourself.
Jennifer just logged off.
I'm pretty sure that's the cut now.
But the interesting thing is that it's also the other way around, where it's like, you can try to emulate somebody who's at a level where that type of luxury doesn't matter. We're talking about a $5 cup of coffee, but people do this with like $400, $500 handbags, where it's like, this person had this handbag and now I have to buy it. It's like, I'm not in a financial position to buy a $500 handbag, but it is what it is. American Express got my back as always. Swipe it, $35
I don't care if
a month.
I'm $800 over my limit.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll catch me.
Yeah, they got me. It's fine. And it's all like, well, no, you're not supposed to do that. And it's like, well, but I want to be like this person, so I have to look like this person. It's like, maybe try emulating the steps before that, before you go and buy the $500 handbag.
Or better yet, maybe that person's in a lot of debt too.
Yeah.
You don't know that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's good.
I was I visited a recording studio sometime earlier this year. Someone else's recording studio out in New York, and it was he had some really nice gear. But like, I realized in that get together that the only difference between where I was and where this person was the level of credit card debt that we had.
All right.
And that was like a really interesting realization, because he had a lot of nice stuff, don't get me wrong, but like paying 27% on thousands of dollars, I would check out. But at least I, as tempting as it is sometimes, as tempting as it is, like, oh, I can have the best stuff if I just put it on a credit. Like, yeah, you're right, you could, but there's a lot of stuff to weigh out there. You also like increase the overhead by substantial amounts. But yeah, it is interesting to see that, like, a lot of times we're comparing with people who are struggling to keep the stuff that they even have that they're showing off.
All right, so just trying to get back to the basics. If you don't like where you're at or how you act, get around people who are where you're looking to go and act the way that you want to act. What else can we say about that?
So there's also levels to this. Okay, let's say I want to be a music producer. Okay, I don't try to emulate DJ Khaled. I emulate Eric right now, because Eric has done the mixing engineering. He's next to me. He's relatively close to me. Okay, how can I emulate Eric until I get to the point where Eric is, and then I say, who's the step above Eric? Who's three or four steps above Eric? And then I emulate that person until I'm at that level.
So
and you continue moving forward.
What do you mean we not the best?
No. No, not yet. Not yet.
We the just all right.
Yeah.
We the we'll see.
We'll see.
I love that you said that, Benji, because like there's something that I think that a lot of people fall into, and I fell into it myself. This is why I want to talk about it. Is you do that, you go into that intention of I want to get I want to get to a certain level, and then you get like, I don't want to say attached to that person, but you get comfortable there, and you get comfortable at the level that you're at, and the person that you're with, and you don't want to hurt them by moving on. You don't want to hurt them by stopping to work with them and go to someone bigger, and you just like, it's really just an internal struggle at the end of it. But it is interesting how like sometimes we do go in with like those intentions of like, I want to learn from this person and then want to move on. But then you get so like unraveled in the person that you spend that time with that now you feel guilty for going to a bigger place.
Well, that's that small tank thing. It's like taking that small fish out, put him in a bigger tank. He grows to the size of the tank. And it's like, okay, I'm happy here. It's like, no, it's time to get out and get into a bigger tank.
Well, there's that age-old adage. It's like the student outgrows the master, or the student now becomes the master, knows more than the master, whatever it is. And it's like the idea that you come into this relationship, this student-teacher relationship, with pre-existing knowledge. That you just have, and then you learn all of the knowledge that the teacher has, so you now have more information than the teacher has at the end of the equation. So it's important to realize that at the end goal of any learning situation is that you know more than the person who taught you the things that you didn't know. So there's no reason for you to stop and say, okay, this person still knows more than me, because if that person still knows more than you, then continue to learn from them. But if they have nothing else to give, then go and find somebody else.
Yeah. Or if you're learning from somebody, but they only give you a little bit, like, how do I explain this? There are people who will teach, and they'll teach like a piece, but they'll never
hold back.
Yeah, they'll hold back, or they won't explain a few certain processes just so that you never get better than them.
My
or
trade
like, secrets. Like you're right. I'm gonna help you just a little bit, but I still want to be the big fish.
Stay away from those people.
Absolutely. Look, get around somebody who's secure and confident in their identity and what they're doing, and we've talked about on the show the whole time, like you don't have success without a successor. So it's like, if you can't find somebody that's willing to pour out into you and actually show you like the ins and outs, or see where your flaws are and be like, hey, I remember when I used to do things like this too, let me help you fix that. I would advise you try to find someone else.
That concept of finding somebody like that, where it's like they have to have the mentality of, I remember when I was you at that level, and I made so many mistakes. Let me help you not make as many mistakes as I had. That's the type of person you want to latch on to. Not the type of person who's all like, oh, I remember when I made those mistakes. I'm just going to watch that person go through the exact same process that I went through. Because then what's the point of being a teacher? If I'm going to go through all of the same issues that you had, why do I need you? And that's not a learning situation. That's living your life with an observer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's another concept that I'm going to try to keep it like somewhat short, but it was a conversation that I had with one of my closest friends, and she had mentioned, it was like, all right, so like we grow out and your mentors, you learn from them, but it's the same concept with friends. Eventually you get to a point in a relationship with your friends where you want to move forward, and the best relationships grow, and the ones that stop making you grow, those are the ones that need to go. Wow, that rhymed. Anyways, she had an amazing. It was just a conversation. I don't think that she pulled this out of anything, so I don't have anything to refer to other than this conversation. But it made a lot of sense. And she was kind of like, "Okay, so do you remember elementary school and all your friends?" And I was like, "No, I don't remember any of those people. Like a couple of them, if I were to see them, maybe recognize them." She's like, "Exactly." Then you go into middle school, a new group of friends, a new group of people. Then you go into high school, a whole new group of people. Do you remember those people? Yeah, I remember them pretty clearly, right? You remember those guys, but you don't really talk to them that much. You don't have that conversation like you used to when you were surrounded by them. And then you go into college, and then those people, do you remember them? Of course, so they're back in my mind. And then every cycle of your life, there was a new group of people that you came in contact with. And then you get to like high school or whatever or college, the last level, and all of a sudden those people are supposed to be there for the rest of your life.
I know.
Right? What changes? Yeah. What changes there? Why? Because you're not going into a new environment, and then now you have to be stuck with the same people, and you don't grow anymore. And that was an amazing concept that she brought up, and I loved it. But it's the idea of just because it's the last group of people you spent time with does not mean that they're going to be there forever, or you're supposed to be around them with the loyalty thing. I have to be like, no, it's people. You're supposed to meet new people. You're supposed to keep growing. And when you stop meeting new people, you kind of stop growing in a way.
Absolutely. That's why a lot of people move. Like, there are people who I've known who have just been like, hey, you know what? Not feeling it here anymore. I'm not growing in this area. I'm stagnant. I'm becoming like stale water, Gotta move. Gotta change the environment. Doesn't really matter where I go, just gotta move.
Think about being a musician. Think about being if you want to make it in any kind of show business, or I secondhand know this girl who had to move to LA and now she works for Disney. Like as an animator. I think she did like she did Wreck-It Ralph and a few other things as an animator. Right, but she made it. But she had to get up out of her comfort zone and Abraham it all the way over to LA. And I mean, hopefully she didn't have to sit on any strange leather couches, but she made it into the business.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, as a musician, like say you come from like Iowa or something, like there's no real music business or scene in Iowa. You'll have to get up and be recognized by somebody in that petri dish, like somewhere like L.A. or Seattle or New York, where they'll be able to be like, "Hey, you're pretty good, kid. Let's bring you up to the big time."
Yeah, when you are the biggest fish in your tank, and there's no other like close remedy of like becoming a small fish again in someone else's big tank, sometimes you have to move. You have to go. Like the music scene's a perfect example because, ducks are here. But like, just going to a bigger scene like LA or Nashville or whatever it is, you have to grow. You have to find the bigger opportunities. You can't stay stalemate.
Absolutely.
And that's it. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned.
So like, I don't understand how you even run a business like that. It's like, okay, well, hey, I'm unprofessional. I still want to get paid for it. Like at minimum baseline level, and I can't help you. Please.
Well, when business is really slow, I suppose you got to make money wherever you can.
I don't want to play devil's advocate, but isn't that like what like HVAC guys do too? Like they have like a home service cost. Like it's like even if you don't fix anything, you charge like $150.
But you go into it knowing that though. Like they say it right at the beginning, right when you place the order. They're like, oh, either way, whether we find something or not, like you have to pay because you have to pay for the guy to get there.
Well, there was so I was reading his sign and like this. The sign was like, oh, like X amount of dollars, like bench fee, and then like you'll have to pay like after once we've diagnosed whatever's wrong and figure out like and repair whatever's wrong.
Yeah.
But I think there was something along the lines of like if we don't fix it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was written into the clause, and they were still like, come on, fork it over, buddy.
Yeah, and that's interesting too. I mean, it all depends because that's a great moment to have a good customer experience.
Yeah, and instead we didn't. Like, the guy who owned the place just like turned his back to me and just like sent me off to his minion to like pay.
Yeah, if he would have turned around and said, hey, wave that, and then you would have been like, okay, cool.
Well, shame on him. Like,
like instead it was trash.
But I'm not gonna cry over spilled milk. $35. Like, I mean, if I can't afford to be in business for $35, like, exactly. I need to go home.
Yeah, right. We'll just talk about it on the podcast, and
and that's it. Therapy 101.
Yeah, and then those little details are really what changes people's perception of your corporation as a whole. It's all like he lost more in reputation for those $35 than he did.
Absolutely. I mean, unless I was pretty desperate, I wouldn't go back to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, nonetheless, so this I guess kind of segues into the concept of that we were talking about.
The practical life applications.
There you go. That we need like a jingle. How do you expect to change the environment around you if you can't change the environment inside you?
Say that one more time.
How do you expect to change the environment around you if you can't change the environment inside you? The idea that change is internal before it's external. You can't change you can't change the things around you if you can't change you as a person.
I mean, if you're in something that you've known all the time, like you get blind and you get used to whatever the environment is. If you're in a room that smells like fish, within 10 minutes, you're not going to smell the fish anymore. And then if you go to that room every day, you're not going to notice that foul, putrid smell. But somebody who's outside walks in, and it's not in your immediate circle. It's like, man, this place reeks. Like, what's going on over here? And it's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
It starts from the change. It's being able to recognize. Yeah. Like, if you're comfortable in a situation and your eyes get open, you're like, oh, this person's toxic. That's where that change came from. And that's like, okay, now I need to Now I need to move forward.
And just to add to that, and once you leave the room, you still smell like the fish.
Yeah.
So other people are smelling you, and they're like, so they look at you, and you don't know why they're looking at you. And another thing is, well, that actually I threw myself off. So continue, guys.
Oh, sorry. So like, you think the example that I keep thinking of is the idea of like relocating people with issues. That just moves the location of the issue.
That was America.
Yeah, that was basically.
That was basically America. It's like, what, prisoners? Drug addicts?
Yeah.
Let's just send them to the new land to get fished.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not. It doesn't work. You know, you take all the. That's one of the things that it's like with the idea of juvenile like schools, like for like delinquent kids or whatever. It's like, who decided the concept of like, let's take all the bad kids from every individual school, put them all together, and put them in another school
and think they're gonna act good.
Yeah, it's like,
and this is how they're gonna learn.
Yeah, so that's gonna go great.
I mean, that's like jail too, I guess.
Which I also have an issue with. Like, I understand that we need a place for like the people who like do the things that are illegal, but like, I don't understand how you expect that to be a good environment where you take all of the bad people from society, you put them in a room, essentially like a big building, and you just let them interact with each other.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you expect that to go well?
That's the number one thing. It's like, let them freely interact with each other.
Yeah.
Like
without interrupting other people.
Jail here, like, I mean, yes, we do have rights, but there's way too much freedom in jail. Like, I do believe, like, if you're an offender like that, like, if you've done anything that's like a felony, like, you've revoked your rights.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And that's like the thing where it's all like, if you don't change the environment, like if you don't change the internal perspective of the person, the external isn't going to change. It's like, how do you expect somebody? All you did was relocate them. You didn't change any physical. You basically put them in timeout, and it's like, oh, okay, we're gonna take this person from society. We're gonna put them in this room for 30 years with the society of other people who are stuck here,
right?
And expect them to change. And then just put them back into society, and then we have the highest turnover rate of like inmates.
Yeah.
Well, that's number one. It's like if you go in, usually it turns into an in and out lifestyle.
Yeah. It's actually more comfortable to be in, because eventually you get comfortable in that environment.
Those are your people.
Yeah.
Because how do you change? How do you change the internal? And it's also the opposite way. It's like, you have to change the internal to change the external. But if you don't change the external, or you stay in the same external environment, it makes it harder to change the internal environment.
Yeah, there's a very basic concept of, you know, your outside is a reflection of your inside. You know, and like, if you always end up meeting people who are, you know, I don't know. For me, it was like I always met people that were depressed, and I didn't realize that somewhere deep inside I had a depression issue that I wasn't facing, and that's why I kept attracting these type of individuals into my life. And that's the same thing for every other way too. But you attract and you reflect in your external life what you live on the inside. And if you're not willing to start changing the small things on the inside, your external will continue to send you those things. If you have a financial issue inside because you just don't have any discipline, then the external, your external money bank account will reflect that lack of discipline. It's simple, but I think that's important to just help people to start recognizing things. If you see cycles continuously happening in your life, it usually is because of something you're not dealing with.
That's really good. It's true. It's like, well, I have this uncontrollable spending problem, or I have this problem or that problem. It doesn't it can stem from discipline, but then like that lack of discipline can stem from something like I spend out of this depression. I'm depressed, so I spend, or I'm whatever, so I feel compelled to spend, or I have this insecurity of I need people to like me, so I buy them gifts.
Yeah,
and the thing is, it's like a hose that you can only cover a certain amount of it. You know, where it's all like, if you treat the symptoms, you're not fixing the problem. So like, let's say you have a depressive issue and you buy stuff because it makes you feel better. Stopping buying things is not going to help you. Okay, it's gonna manifest in a different way. So instead of buying stuff, you're gonna go do something else. You're gonna go start painting, you know, and now your life is gonna be enthralled in painting. And it's like, sometimes these issues, they manifest as things that society doesn't see as a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because people can say, oh, what's wrong with painting? There's nothing wrong with painting. There's absolutely nothing wrong with painting. But when your whole life revolves around painting because you're depressed, that's a bad sign. Like those are issues. And the only way to fix that is to fix the depression, not to fix the issue that comes from the depression.
Yeah, when you it's like a lot of people, like when they get stressed out, they like, stress is a huge thing, and the stress isn't the problem. It's what's deeper below the stress. What causes the stress? What emotion are you feeling that causes that stress, which is usually like an insecurity or an anxiety, something like that, that causes the stress. That then that stress, in order for you to deal with it, because you don't want to deal with it, you go into like something that either you spend more than you need to, or you eat a lot of food, or you end up painting or doing something that's external just to kind of deal with the stress, but you're not dealing with the problem that causes the stress. You're kind of just covering it up.
Going off on a little rabbit trail, I know Jose really wanted us to talk about this. Shout out Jose. What's up, Jose?
Hello, Jose.
I'm sure you're gonna listen to this. We were talking about depression the other night at the table, and a lot of people like want to kill themselves. And like there's this overwhelming sense of like, I just want to kill myself. I want to kill myself. There's a root issue that we're so good at lying to ourselves that we'll hide deep down inside and be like, my life sucks. My life sucks. Why does your life suck? Because my life just sucks. We'll get to this repressive state where whatever that root issue is that makes us want to kill ourselves, we will never uncover that and bring that back up, and we'd rather dwell on those things that make our life miserable. I hope I can communicate that well.
There's a I forget the name of the song, but it was based off of this concept where it's all like, sometimes we build our lives around one core thing, and then that core thing getting attacked shakes the foundation of our lives. Where it's like, we don't want to talk about this thing because our personality, our friendships, our style, the choices that we've made in life, all of these things are based off of this one event.
And it could be something like shame,
yes,
or abuse, or self-deprecation.
Yeah.
And if we change that one, if we attack the root of that cause, that means that we have to change all of the things that we've based our life on.
Yeah, it's an existential crisis. I mean, there are many of crises that you can come to, and that's one of the hardest ones to deal with.
And our mind is so good at hiding these things.
Oh, we lie to ourselves. We're the best at lying to ourselves,
especially when they happen at a younger age. You know, and then like you don't even realize you're lying to yourself at that point. Like I shared it with you guys, and I've shared my fear of bees at one point on this podcast, and I'll share it again. But like I didn't realize why I was so afraid of bees. And then after like one day, it just turned on like a light bulb. And I remember that when I was a kid, I was like in 3rd grade, my clothing came in from the clothing line. I put on a shirt, and there was a bee trapped inside the shirt, and it stung me in the back a few times. And I remember it was like a traumatic moment in my life. I was like a 3rd grader running around the house with a bee stinging him in the back, and he had no idea what's going on. And that memory was so suppressed that I completely forgot about it. But because of that, I had an internal fear of bees.
And that became your personality.
And that became my personality. Until I could figure out what that initial moment was that I became afraid of bees, I couldn't overcome that fear. Because then once I realized it was that, I was like, oh, okay. And it became much more comfortable to be around a bee. You know, but it's just like the same thing. Is like these things happen when we're younger. It traumatizes us. Our mind covers it. And then we just act based off of nothing.
You build on top of it.
Yeah, and then like it's like literally like burying a body, and you're building a house on top of it, and you have no idea that the body's down there.
Wow, that's really good. So while we have like 3 minutes left, we're talking about how are you supposed to change the external if you can't first change the internal? It really gets down to root things, and being able to renew our minds with the right. How do I phrase this the right way? With the right thinking, with the right ways of I don't know how to put this into language. Do you guys?
The idea that we have neural pathways. We discussed this concept in the show. Your brain is a drug addict, I believe. I think that was the name of the show.
Yeah, I think so.
That we talked about neural pathways. We talked about the concept that if you validate those signals in your brain, they're going to be easier to go through. You know, we were listening to Eric and I were actually listening to Chris Valentin. He was talking about the same concept too. He used the example of a grass path and a 6-lane highway, where it's all like, if you build a 6-lane highway, it's much more efficient to use the 6-lane highway. It's a lot faster to use the 6-lane highway than it is to use the grass path, because it's been developed more.
Yeah, but if you travel that grass path 100 times, it starts to get worn out, and it gets much easier to travel down. It's the same with that. So like, if your default is like, I'm depressed today. That's the highway to travel on, because you've traveled that your whole life. Like, my life sucks. If you can find some kind of hope and grab onto that hope and begin to renew your mind with, I guess my life's not that bad. I'm holding out for this moment. I'm holding out to be able to accomplish this goal. This is a new day. My life's going to be so much better. If you travel that path every day consciously, eventually you'll be able to default of, today's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than like, oh, my life sucks.
Absolutely. And it's a hard thing to do because, like, your mind does default to these things, but you have to make a conscious decision that you want to change this. And you have to surround yourself by positive people who can help you make or look at the brighter side of things so that becomes your default. You want to be, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say you want that positive thought to be your first thought. And then everything else comes after, and that really helps you get your mind together.
We were talking about that you can't change the external if you can't first change the internal, but sometimes it has to be an external impetus. Mm-hmm. We got to change what's going into our eyes and ears, what we hear, what we speak, the people we're around, and that brings everything full circle. If you don't like where you are, if you don't like the way that you're thinking, if you don't like the way that you're acting, you have to get around people who act the way that you want to act, and get into the place, or at least work towards the place of, that's where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And, we only have a minute left in this episode, but if we're encouraging everybody to do something, it's to change the things that you want to change in your life. It might be a difficult process. It might take a lot of time. And if you want to learn more about the neural pathway thing, that's episode 10 of season 1. That's Your Brain is a Drug Addict on the podcast. Just scroll. It'll wherever your best podcast player. It says it's episode 10. You can listen to that to get more details upon that. But it's just actively change. It's not something that'll happen by itself. A lot of people just expect, if I just continue living my life, I will eventually get better. No, you won't. You'll probably get a lot worse.
And eventually they'll pump you with drugs.
Exactly. Yep. So it's make the change before you have to manually change the chemical balance of your body, because that's also not
override.
Exactly. That's also not a solution.
While we have 15 seconds, I was listening to Gary Vee, and Gary Vee was basically saying, one of my dreams was always to wake up in Paris. Now he was using this as somebody's example. Here come the ducks.
It's still got a couple seconds. It's a bit delayed. Good job there.
Weird. Anyways, so Gary Vee said, like, one of my things is I want to wake up in Paris. And he's like, well, what's stopping you from waking up in Paris? Oh, well, my bank account, my this, my that. It's like the difference between like talking about wanting to go to Paris and going to Paris is getting up and doing it, and then making the sacrifice to be able to do it. Yeah. It's like, if I wanted to move to Paris, I would go there, and you have to scrape ends and maybe have like 2 or 3 jobs and get a crappy apartment and share with 2 other people to be able to live there.
But you'll wake up there.
But you'll wake up in Paris, and your goal will be checked off. Yeah. And then you work towards the place that you want to be next.
Yeah, that's so good. Get those things out of the way. You can't let that, like, those goals of like you have bigger goals, but like, I want to wake up in Paris, and then getting there is like the next milestone. And so it takes you like so long to get that done, and then you start the next. Like, get it out of the way. Accomplish your goals as fast as possible. I love that.
Get there and keep moving. All right, and we'll be back next time. See you later. All right. I guess I don't need this thing. Thanks for listening to the Life Podcast. Like, share, subscribe, rate, all that good stuff. Come follow us on Patreon. We'd really appreciate the support. The coffee over here don't pay for itself. And there's the ducks.